Hey, assalamu alaikum everyone. All right, so welcome back. This is going to be a different type of session. We are going to do some software development. I'm going to go through some Swift UI stuff, and I thought about actually doing some Swift related stuff for, as you know, to show you guys, but I realized Swift is kind of taking a backseat to Swift UI. And mind you, they're not equal. Swift is the language that is used to create modern iOS and basically all of Apple's apps, iOS, iPadOS, macOS, watchOS, tvOS. I think that's all the OSs. Uh, so yeah, Swift is the main language. Swift UI is a new and hot thing that lets you create like the UI, the user interface, hence Swift UI. Before, it was something called a UI kit. That library is, though this is still being used, but Apple is pushing for Swift UI to be more prominent. So you'll see that as you know, as we go more and more into complex things, sorry, kind of a little itchy over here. As we move forward into more complex, examples, you realize that okay, Swift UI may not be the best option as opposed to UI Kit. But the reason why I'm not covering UI Kit is, well, because it's going to be defunct soon, outdated, whatever you want to call it. Now, I know a lot of big companies, they're slow to move, slow to update. You know, if it's not a really fast moving startup, they're still gonna be in the the older stuff. I know this from experience having my own, you know, uh, hands-on stuff in professional environment. So I like to stay ahead of the curve, and I also practice, just keep my skills and sharp, keep them sharp with the old stuff, but having one finger in, in the new libraries and the new languages always helps. So now what I wanted to do was follow, I don't know if you guys know of Hacking with Swift. It's a website run by an amazing developer. I actually have been following him for many, many years. It's uh God, I'm sorry, I haven't had my like enough coffee today. It's by Paul Hudson, and I actually interacted with him a little bit too. He's an amazing guy, a very knowledgeable person, and he was on the Swift train back when it was just Objective-C going into Swift. He hopped onto that Swift train and he ran with it. And he created his website called hackingwithswift.com. I've been using it for many years. I've been referring to it for a number of things as, review, whatever you want to call it. But I also refer to it whenever I'm stuck with a problem. Maybe it's something, I can't remember syntax of a particular issue, how to implement, say, tables or very basic stuff. But at the same time, he builds on that basic stuff and he progresses into more complex things. Like, you know, well, we'll see. I'll show you. But right now, let's start off with day one. If you want, I can link the Hacking with Swift website and what I'm doing with SwiftUI, the project that he actually shared on his website. I'll be, linking it in the description below. But what I also wanted to share that he also shared something specific with SwiftUI. What he does is, and this is a number of other, developers do this as well, is that they share regular implementation videos or updates on websites with SwiftUI. And in this case, he did 100 days with SwiftUI. So what I would like to do is just for today, since this is going to be like a beginner thing, I'll do 1 day with SwiftUI. If, we get into the flow of things, we get a little better, maybe we'll do day 1 or 2 days at once. But for now, let's start with day one. Before we begin anything, if you are gonna follow with me and you are, interested in learning iOS development, um, what I would recommend you do is a few things. If you have a MacBook, and this is kind of, I would say, imperative because without a MacBook, you have to find like weird ways to work with, Swift development. And there are ways, but it's not as effective. Let me tell you, I have my own experience with, for example, downloading the Visual Basic or Microsoft, whatever those other IDEs, and then installing a Swift library, and then, making sure it's up to date. And it's not up to date, so you have to make work around that. Like, okay, I have to use an older version of the syntax, yada, 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 yada. It can get very tiresome. So what I recommend is if you have a Mac, whether it's a MacBook, MacBook Pro, Air, iMac, um, all the other kinds of Macs, even if it's an iPad, I think it's to some extent you can with Xcode Playgrounds. Sorry, Swift Playgrounds. You can use that too. However, I'm going to use Xcode for now. So if you have a MacBook, get that all warmed up, download Xcode. You can download Xcode for free through the Mac App Store, or if you have a developer account on Apple's developer pages, developer.apple.com. By the way, all these links will be in the description, so don't worry. I'll walk you through every step of the way. So anyway, you sign up for the developer pages of Apple, and you go to the downloads. You download Xcode, you install it. Currently, as of July 26th, we have let me just get the exact version. Uh, the Xcode 15 Beta 5 is out. It was, I think, released yesterday or the day before. Something. Usually they're updated every Monday. So I downloaded that. I want I recommend that you download Xcode 15, the beta version, or stick with the, what's it called? Regular, wow, I'm really missing my coffee at this point. The standard, the regular version. Download that, install that, and once you install that, you can go to File, New, or there's a little pop-up that comes up when you first start in the program, and it allows you to create a new project. So start a new project, and that's where we are. We are at the options to set up your new project. I set up our product name. That's what will ask you, your product name. If you don't have a team, you can always select it as, yes, that's my full name. You can select it as none. But I have a, account as a developer. I have a paid account. Uh, anyway, so make sure this is the most important part of setting up the project is first you have Swift UI set up, not Storyboard. Storyboard refers to UI kit. Swift UI is what we want. All right, that's the interface. And the language is Swift. There's nothing else to choose. And storage, make sure to pick none. We don't need Swift data or core data yet. All right, and you don't need to check anything else. All right, so we press next. Select, let's see, let's go to my development box, mobile, iOS. Let me just create a new folder for Swift. There we go. Swift UI. What was it called? 100 days. Yes. There we go. Oh, all right. Create that and save it there. Ooh, it does its thing. And all right. So I'm actually also referring to my other screen here for following the steps, making sure that I'm covering everything that I needed to. Let's see. All right, so Okay, so now this is the first thing you'll see once you start up Xcode. You know what? Let me make this the font bigger. Where to go here? Okay, so we're in light. Let's go to where the window pop out. There it is. Sometimes when you open up these extra options, the window, and if you have multiple monitors, I have three monitors right now. My laptop is here, where the camera is. This is my main monitor. It's the big one, and this is the work monitor that I have that they provided, and I have it in vertical mode. I like to see, the length, the vertical length of documents, code, what have you. All right, so let's make this bigger. Let's see, 18, 24. Interesting. This is actually not getting bigger. All right, so let's go back to 12. I have a better idea. There we go. All right, let's make it light. Aha. Okay. So, um, okay, so this is where the view, the UI, is rendered. This is for currently the iPhone 14 Pro, the latest one. I usually pick the Pro, the phone that I have. I have the iPhone 14 Pro, and um, seems like it's still kind of rendering it right here. This is why. First, the index was being built. Now it's preparing the editor functionality, and then it will be indexing. This is some background processes of of Xcode, so it's okay. No worries. For now, we can actually, let's see if I can close this for now and run it. See what I get. Let's see. All right, so here you can run the app either on a physical device, which I have not connected, or it can run in a simulator right here. It has the latest beta, iOS 17.0 right now. It's booting up. Yeah, the actual simulator, it runs the iOS program, the operating system, I should say, as a simulator within the Xcode environment. So all these buttons, see that? See that? If you look carefully, what happened here? Oh, okay. What was stuck is now running. All right. Anyway, so all these buttons are interactive. Okay, so this is the power button, display, sleep, whatever you want to call it, volume up and down, and the mute switch button. All right, so hmm, there should be something here, right? So let's try it again. Let's try to run it again. Hmm. Okay, let me deal with this and I'll get back to you guys in just a bit. 1 second. Okay, so I figured out what the problem was. The simulator had crashed. This thing right here. And it had crashed in a way that apparently was just not recoverable. So I had to restart everything. And now I just ran it and it shows. So here, look. Actually, you know what? I forgot something before I started all this simulating was I had to show you Xcode. I had to explain to you what Xcode actually is. So let's do that. On this side, let's see if I can do if that works. No, nope, that doesn't work. All right, so On the top corner of, well, actually, I should say the left panel of Xcode is the folder view and all the files, the structure of the files, and you can also access, other parts of, the project itself. It's called the Project Navigator. You can see all your bookmarks, search through the project, any errors, any tests you set up, and then, the memory being used by the app. Let's see, breakpoints, and all the the runtime and all that stuff. Everything related to the project's performance and operation, it's right there on the left side. On the right side, this is, let's see, there was a name for this. I gotta remember the name. Let's see, things in the views. This is the navigator. The left side is called navigator. That's right. The debug area is in the bottom part right here where you see the errors. This is the debug area. It's not errors, those are warnings, but those are okay warnings, nothing to worry about. Inspectors. This is where we were. Let's see, look. Inspector. There we go. And let's see, show inspector. Boom. Now, when you look at this, this shows all the details related to whatever you have selected in the main area. In this case, since nothing is actually selected, it just shows the details of the actual file that you're working on. Currently, we're working on content_view.swift, and it shows the content_view.swift, the type of file it is, location, and the full path, which is actually really handy if you need to troubleshoot some things. That actually happened to me some time ago in another app where I had to recreate the project from scratch and I had to use the same file. So I had to point that full path to another file's full path. Pretty crazy. It took me a solid half hour or so to sit and straighten that out. Anyway, this is also very important once you have different elements, third-party elements coming in. Not really relevant right now, but we'll get to that later. And the rest of the stuff is just settings for the text and all that stuff that you write. Additional stuff, all this stuff will come by when we have more elements, more complexity within the app. This plus sign, this is a fun thing. This plus sign shows a number of things. This is, I think, what was the name of this? The library. That's correct. The library. This is library of snippets, of media, of color, and of symbols. This will be very handy when we have the UI and we're working on setting up the user interface of the actual, app. All right. Okay, so let's begin. This is where you import the library. In this case, it's SwiftUI. Before when we had before SwiftUI, I should say, we had UI kit. See, it is still there because currently SwiftUI is not a 100% replacement for UI kit. However, there is a large percentage of the UI kit library that SwiftUI actually covers. It's enough for basic apps, I should say. It's not enough for, like I said, the complex, the larger apps that do a lot of other things. It is for our needs, it's a good replacement. All right, so now Swift UI and Swift actually deals with structs. What are structs? Structs are, well, I think we will cover that in a later video because I just want to show you how we create a basic app. But structs need to be defined. Now, I'll explain that in a later video. Content view, you probably can get some idea of what they are, but we'll define them and explain them and go through them later. Right now, I wanted to quickly set this up. All right, so this is within a VStack, which is, virtual stack. And here the image is defined, and the globe, this is an internal image that is within iOS. It's like an emoji, kind of. It's the internal, I shouldn't say emoji, that's actually incorrect. This is the internal elements that are like, the images within text. These are the internal images within the library that iOS has. There could be a number of things. It could be, like in this case, globe. It could be, arrows. It could be a lot of things. Let's see. I can see, try if I can do this. Hmm. No, actually, we can't do that right now because, well, let me see. Can we see the, oh, I wanted to see the preview screen. Hmm. Anyway, we'll deal with that later. Um, all right, so let's begin what I originally wanted to do. Oh, there's one thing that's very important to me. Uh, why did I pick Swift or iOS? I actually started off with Android. I was learning Android, I was learning Java, I was learning how, build an Android Java app. And as I was learning that, I bumped accidentally. Actually, it was just like a spur of the moment, like I want an iPhone 3GS. And I started learning iOS through that. And I realized I like the iOS platform more than Android. Back then, I should say. Back then. I think this was when Android was like version 7, 6, 5, something like that. It was in the single digits. And iOS was like 6, 5. It was pretty low. But anyway, I found the iOS platform was still just like well kept. Uh, it was controlled in a better way. It was cleaner looking. And Android, although it was still like it was the new kid on the block at that time, and Android had a lot of things going for it. It was just so it was far more flexible than iOS was, but at the same time, that flexibility allowed a lot of, I don't want to say nonsense, but I'll say nonsense to be allowed within the ecosystem of Android. You had really terrible designs. You had terrible programming, bad apps within the Android market at the time. And I liked like a level of, class, a level of cleanliness, a level of a standard, you know, a high standard. That's what I keep to myself. That's what I keep my code in. And that's what I like to see in the products that I use. And I didn't see that in Android. I saw it in iOS. Oddly enough, because I was vehemently against iOS and Apple's stances on how they do business and how this and that. And I came to realize that, I was passionate about mobile instead of actually being passionate about Apple's whatever in particular, because I realized Apple kept their systems, their iOS, all their products closed for a reason. And that's why they're a better experience for regular day users than Android, because Android was less closed. It was rather, open and open source and all that stuff. I'm not getting to that debate because I am for open source, but I am also closed. I am also for closed products because they provide a better user experience for the user. And quite frankly, just like it was, Tron said, for the users, right? So if it's not for the users, really, honestly, who are you doing it for? All right. So anyway, let's move forward. So here I inserted an image, and since this is an internal system image, I use globe. I should say I use this is the standard boilerplate that is provided by Xcode whenever you start it up. So anyway, this is a sub comment command. I don't know why I said command. This is a sub command to provide the image scale property, which is set to large. Below that, the foreground style is set to tint. Tint affects the color of the icon, the outwardly color. Meaning when it says foreground style and applying a tint to the foreground of the app. Meaning if it was a background, it would be in the background. Foreground is in the front. Uh, anyway, right below that, right below the image is text. And this is how you define text in SwiftUI. Before it was something different. And again, I don't want to get into how it was before. I want to look forward. So in SwiftUI, text is when you want to write out text, this is how you do it. You write a text in parentheses, you write your statement, yours, whatever you want to write. You can add variables in here as well, like plus, and then your YZ would be your variable. I didn't set a variable, so I can't submit it, but actually, let me try this. And if I see right here, so let's do this. Okay, and let's run it again. You'll see it in the simulator. It may show up. There. Okay, did you see the difference? Hello world, and then I just concatenated the string version of the number integer 3. There is no space here, right? So that's why there's no space there between the exclamation point and the string of number 3. Concatenation is something that is really fun and useful as you grow in your career of iOS development and programming generally. Concatenation comes in very handy in cases like this. Anyway, so moving forward, you have this VStack completed. Okay, VStack is this part right here. And when you want to add attributes or characteristics to that stack or entity that is within, these curly braces, you can add padding. Padding creates, space around it from the other elements surrounding it. Right now, we don't have any other elements, so it's no big deal, but it still provides like a breathing room, if you will, visually. All right, so this basic, really simple code, you close it up, and this struct, the content view struct, content view, by the way, is the name. The view is a type of struct that we created. So we create a view struct with a name called content view. And by the way, this is not something that I shouldn't say we created. I'm really terrible at this. We did not create this. This is boilerplate code that Xcode creates. All right. So whenever you open up an app, this is how you create the content view. Anyway, within that view, you have this view. This is an interesting. This you have to create this in order to have a body, and this is mostly to create a structural, view. So you have the variable var body, which is some view. It's not defining the view. It's just some, meaning there is some sort of flexibility to this view. And in that view of body, you have, the VStack with the padding. So that's that. And this part, this is the preview. Remember when there was a big gray screen before, and I closed that just to, avoid any further hiccups. This creates the content view as a preview, and it shows it on the side. Will show it like right here, unlike, well, I can't show it to you, but it's on the right side of this, um, this view right here. So essentially, that's that. You have an app, basic app that has content view, and then you have this part that actually has the app. Now, this particular file takes that content view and prepares it to be displayed on the device or however one it needs to be displayed. That's where this code shows. You have the content view in the window group, which is in the scene. Now, this is different from the view. This is a scene. The scene is the entirety of, like, for example, you have, your phone on you, and, you have your phone on you, and you have the screen. That's the whole scene. And that is obviously within the struct of an app. Does that make sense? If you don't, please feel free to ask me questions in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. All right, so the next part of the whole app folder is the assets folder. The assets folder is where you can add any, accent colors, but more importantly, is where you add the app icon. We're not gonna do this right now. I'll do the graphics part of this whole, app development later because it's a little bit more complex. There's a lot of moving parts. However, this is where that goes. There's a lot of other things you can add to this. For example, if you want a color scheme specifically for the way you have your app set up, like a specific theme that goes throughout the app, this is the best way to set it up. If you want images that like icons that are part of like your whole, like, okay, you have a big icon, you have a smaller icon on your list and stuff like that, this is where you would set it up. All right, and that is pretty much it for this basic stuff. However, I did want to quickly go over this menu. This is the general menu. It shows all the settings, all the configuration of your project. It is extremely important. For example, you have to define the destination for which you're creating this app for. Destination for which you're creating this app. I get lost in my grammar sometimes. Anyway, so we tested on an iPhone, so we could be making it only for the iPhone. However, like for some of like for example, I made this app, and I think I mentioned this before, Guess Animals. I made it for my son, and it was an iPhone and iPad app. So I removed the Mac, and currently this is the new beta. This is why it has Apple Vision, the big giant glasses, which are so awesome. Anyway, so there has you take out all the other platforms and you build it for iPhone and iPad. In this case, I just went for the iPhone. All right. Next, you check for the minimum deployment version. Since this is the beta version, it automatically says iOS 17.0. But you can pick all previous going back to 12 because prior to 12, there was a different time, different version, different Xcode altogether. And you will need to download that version of Xcode to go prior to 12 because this Xcode only supports iOS versions from 12 to 17. And you will see that currently all the iPhones that are out there, meaning on Apple's, not the iPhones, all Apple's devices that are currently being sold right now, they support from iOS 12 up to now 17. Anything that is not supported is not in this Xcode. It's in the previous Xcode versions. And eventually they'll be taken out of Apple Store as well. Next, you have the display name of the app. You know how you have the Google search app, right? And it says Google, or it may say search. Ooh, did I just? Okay. Sorry, my preview of the recording, it's kind of like zonking out. Anyway, so the display name identifies exactly the name that will be displayed when you install this app on your phone or the iPad if you have one. You understand. The bundle identifier is very important. This is the identifying information that will be used when you publish to the App Store. There's if for example you have the same app and someone else, sorry, you have an app with a specific name. Someone else wants to release an app of that specific name. It won't work. It will deny it. Apple will deny your app upload if the bundle identifier is the same. And mind you, typically that is not the cause. It's not saying that someone else has a bundle identifier of the same name. It's typically that you have already uploaded a bundle identifier of that same name. For example, the reason why that is important is because there are not many people who have the same bundle identifier for the first two parts, meaning the bundle identifier actually is composed of, for example, like a URL of an internet website, but it's backwards and it doesn't have the HTTP stuff or the www, although you can add it, but it doesn't. It starts with com, which is company, dot my company or my team name, which is my name, and then the name of the app. Or you can have, extra stuff, which is okay. But if someone has the same name, which is highly unlikely, meaning the button identifier is the first part, the com dot Moin Ahmed, they typically don't. But if they do, that's where the issues may come from. Anyway, there's some stuff happening outside. Anyway, so the version here says 1.0. You know how you get updates in the App Store? Oh, what is happening outside? Oh, fire truck. Oh my God. I hope they're okay. Um, so yeah, the version increments with each update because if you upload and update uh, as your first update will be 1.0 obviously, but if the second update is not that, it will update fine. But if it still says 1.0, it will cause issues, it will give you errors, or it might even potentially like over update, oh sorry, remove your update. Actually, it won't do that, my bad, I shouldn't say that. Anyway, so it will give you errors. Essentially, that's what it is. So you need to increment that version every single time you plan on updating. So for example, I have 1.0 right now. And if I create an app that has minor changes, I would just increment the point one. The point zero, I do point one or etc. But if it's a major update, I plan on doing 2.0 or 3.0. That's up to me. But what needs to be important is that it needs to increment, period, with every update that you upload to Apple, not over here. This 1.0 can stay for as long as I want to. I can make as many changes as I want until I upload to Apple servers. All right? And the same thing with the build. I keep track of my builds. For example, it's build one, and I build it, and there's some major errors. I may upload it to build two, build three, build four, and eventually I had some apps where I did some like I think it was in like 35, build 40 or something like that, and I was still on version 2.1 or something it was. Anyway, so that's what happens. That helps me keep track of any debugging or anything. I have to go back. It's like, oh, okay, this is where the issue was. That kind of stuff. Anyway, moving on to deployment information. Right here is where I identify the orientation of the app. You know how some apps go from here to here? That's what this is. I tend to adjust these based on, you know, um, the purpose of the app. Some of my apps have been purely portrait. Some of them have switched over to this sideways, landscape. I technically don't like it upside down. I really don't like that user. I mean, like sometimes people use their phones upside down. Just it doesn't make sense to me. Status bar style. This is cool. You can define this within the code, but the fact that it's here is also cool. You can either hide it on launch, application launch, where the user launches the app, opens it, and the status bar hides automatically. Or you can use the default where it is defined by the system, or you can use make it a dark based status bar style, meaning if you have a dark content and you want to choose a dark UI, you can, or light. Typically, it's light by default. All right, so the app icon. The app icon is, as I said, is based around the assets app icon folder. Oh, there goes another fire truck. Oh my God. Uh, so you have to actually sometimes it automatically does it. Sometimes you have to, put in the file name. It figures it out though. All right, so app icon source, include all app icon assets. Yes. Also, sometimes this actually, let me actually clarify this. This is because you know how some apps have, oh, let's have this app. You can change the icon to this or that, or different colors, or whatever. There's a lot of reasons why people do it, but the fact is they have multiple icons, app icons. And so this allows you to do that. It provides you like, okay, you want to select it, so you have to include an app icon source, which is in the assets folder. Launch screen. This is from back in when apps actually had a initial screen and then they would move over to the actual app main screen. Meaning, I don't know which app does this, but sometimes when you open a game, for example, and it shows the title of the game, the whole branding, and then it opens up to like, okay, the menu. That's what the launch screen is. I had one from one of my apps, I think it was the Guess Animals app. I had a launch screen and I realized it was such a waste of resources because by the time I made my main screen that looked like the launch screen, and it saved me some like a few seconds really, but it was just a few seconds where the user would be like, okay, you know what? I'm in the game. I didn't have to wait those few seconds because quite honestly, when you're building an app, every second counts. Really, it's no joke. You have maybe 5 to 15 seconds to impress a user for their first time use of your app. And having a launch screen sometimes gets in the way of that. Sometimes. Sometimes the launch screen is actually very useful. So just keep that in mind. Um, Next up, supported intents. This is something you'll have to create, but I can get into that later. This is not really that important right now. Frameworks, libraries, and embedded content. This can be useful when you want to import third-party libraries or frameworks, and also some stuff that you want to add that is within iOS libraries. Sorry, Apple's libraries. You can add that, like for example, I think what was it? Um, well, there was one library that I imported that I used. I'm forgetting. If it comes to my mind, I'll put it, bring it up again. But there's specific frameworks that you can import in, and they'll be very useful and give life to your app. All right, so the assets, this just it's gonna list any development assets that you have already. You can add some more, but for our instance, it's useless right now. All right, so signing in capabilities. This is very important. I have my own account. This is my full name, but I have my own account. That's why it says team my name. For teams that are for, company accounts, corporate accounts, they have their own name and they have people who manage them, like accounts who manage that main account. For me, I have just a basic regular account. I can do that as none, and then I would need sorry, then I would require, some other things, but that would allow me to use, like in your case, since if those of you who don't sign up or pay for the full account, using none or even using the free accounts, that would allow you to test on a physical device. when you attach it, of course. If you don't have that, you won't be able to. That's the thing. That was the most important thing about this. All right, so moving forward, this is not useful to us right now. Okay, so information. This is really interesting. This can be handy when you're doing some clever stuff, but in our case, this is when we don't really need to use anything here. But over here, all this stuff is defined. You can actually see um the s- the text file that has this information. But again, this is not relevant for our cases, so we're not gonna go too deep into this. The URL types is actually pretty useful when you want to do like logging in and stuff, but we'll discuss that later. Build settings. This is fun. I like this. It has all the relevant configurations that come from the general page where you have it set up, where you have all this set up. All these settings are here, and they're more granular. So if you want to go really deep into how you want your app configured and all the settings related to the build, right here. Moving on, build phases. This stuff is sometimes important, not all the time, but sometimes. Uh, Mostly because of the binaries and the libraries and the bundles, they need to kind of connect to your app. This is where it happens. And troubleshooting happens here as well. Build rules, honestly, I don't think I've ever really touched this unless my build was actually in a really bad shape, and even then, it was kind of useless for me in that sense where I didn't need to touch anything here, anything to access anything here. So yeah, so that was the target. The project information is also very important. This part may not be, although yes, here the configuration. Let's see. Yeah, so there's none really here that's important. All right, this is in our case right now. It's not important, but as you build a release-based app, that will be very important to, consult and check into. Same here, build settings. This is for the project-wide stuff, not actually specifically for the app stuff, because when you create an Xcode project, you're not just building an app, you're building a whole project. There's other parts besides the app itself. And when we start building some more complex things, I think we'll dive more deeply into this. All right, so package dependencies. This is where you add anything extra and external third party that you think would help create more features for you. This is where it's at. All right, so let me see what we need to do today for this 100 days of Swift UI. Day one. Okay, so day one is we talked about why Swift. All right, how to create variables and constants. All right, so let's see. Let's create it here. My keyboard is not connected. There we go. So I like to give some breathing space between each element in the code so it's easier to read, honestly, because once you have like a lengthy, uh, you know, code file, it helps. All right, so once you establish good habits early on, as you grow into your, developer, uh, I guess, skill set, they will help you later on even more so than now. Piece of advice. So I'll be sharing more of these um, little tidbits because they help me, and I hope they help you too. All right. So let's start with uh, greeting. Oops, equals. And here, instead of hello world, you can put greeting. All right. Says, say that again. Up. Okay, so that killed the app that was in being displayed before. It's okay. And now we're waiting for it to compile. There we go. So build succeeded means it's ready to launch. If you see here, it's saying it's just installing to the device. Now, you see this? There we go. It worked. We can change um, the greeting itself, or if you wanted to use the greeting again, we can do this. Okay, don't need any, uh, don't need that. We need this. So let's run it again. If you look here, it says it's launching, so it's doing something. Ah, here we go. Oh, that's why it's taking a long time. See, it's also doing indexing. Indexing is when the whole software, in this case, Xcode, indexes everything, all the past files, everything, especially in this particular project. So it sometimes takes a bit, sometimes it's fairly quick, but oh, there it is. Here we go. And how about we add some attributes to this text? Let's see. So, okay, when you press enter and you press the period, you get all these attributes that you have available to you. So let's see. Let's do italic. Okay. And let's do monospaced. Actually, let's move italic. I just want to do monospaced. Okay. Play it again. While this is playing, I'm going to quickly check how to fix the live preview. Give me a moment. Mm, aha, it worked. Oh, look at that. This is in monospace text formatting. Looks good, I think. Right? Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna close this simulator because I want to show you the actual preview, the in-window preview. Oh, sorry, it's called a live preview window. Let's let it, build. In the meantime, let me see what's next for us. While that's building, because it takes some time to build, um, I want to show you the difference between var, which is a variable, versus this is a new type of data, not data, command, versus let. Now, var is variable. Well, my fingers are dancing all over. But let is, what do you think it could be? Let, let means let. No, it means, wow, the word is, let me see. Aha, yes, sorry. Constant. I don't know, I'm blanking on a lot of things. All right, so, oh, look at this. This is loaded now. Make this a little. All right, so if we did, since we have var, sorry, we have a var greeting, right? So over here, we do greeting equals howdy, all right? And, hmm, this is interesting. Oh, I think I know why. Okay, so, all right, let's try it here. Okay, see, this is part of programming. What happens is what you want to do and what happens sometimes is not what you expect. Interesting. So, what if I think I know what's going on here? Huh. Okay. Well, I'm looking into this. Well, the reason why I was saying this is because you can change a var variable, but you cannot change a let variable. For example, let I equals 1. All right. Over here, if I say equals 2, happens. See, there. Cannot assign, sorry, here. Cannot assign to value, I is a let constant. That's what I was trying to explain. So we don't actually need this. Let me keep this here. All right, so I hope that makes sense. And moving to the next thing. Oh, this is one of my favorite things. All right, so we have a VStack greeting, right? And we have two greetings, sorry, I should say. And we have a greeting um, variable. So sometimes when you want to make sure that the variable that has that string, what's up YouTube, you want to make sure that it's actually working, right? So to do that, you do a print statement. What I like to do is this. Oh, whoops, hold on. There. Yeah, so in Swift UI and Swift, um, case matters. All right. What is happening here? Oh, why does that? Hmm. See, this is what I was trying to say when Swift UI and Swift sometimes, like, there's some hiccups. I've been using Swift for a number of years. That statement would work just fine without any problems. But for some reason, it's giving me a problem. Hold on while I figure this out. Oh, okay. Let's try this. Hmm. Hmm. Lock screen. I've never seen that. Ah, okay. So here's the issue, and this is actually my mistake, but it's a good learning lesson for all of us. In regular Swift, putting a print command with, any type of string or variable in the parentheses, it would have worked. It would have worked anywhere, anywhere. But in Swift UI, it doesn't work everywhere. It actually works when you have to. Uh, sorry, I should say first, it does not work in the view. This view right here, the body view. All right. That's why I said it cannot conform to view. What you need to do is assign it to a variable. In this case, I did something a little tricky. I assigned it to an underscore value. This is like, I don't want to say like it's a wild card. It's like an unnamed, um, unnamed variable or constant in this case. So it's let. All right. So, and they kind of proves it by coming up here in the console. As a piece of advice, um, when you're printing to the console, what I like to do is this. This is my personal thing, but most people do something like, oh, output or note or, log. What I like to do is this, and then there. So if I play this, if I run this again, watch what happens here. Hmm, that's a good idea. So something. Oh, I know what happened. All right, I do it the wrong way. There we go. Hmm, there we go. Wow. See, something small like changing the direction of the slash can completely throw off the whole thing. Let's try this. Okay. So now, if you want to see comments, the best way would be to run the simulator. But if you want to see the view being previewed, this is the best way. So let's see. There we go. Okay, so see, so this log, what's up, YouTube? All right. So I think that's enough for today as, first day intro. Um, yeah, I think that's good. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments, and I will address them next time. All right, so here I will save this. This is our day one file. And next time, tomorrow or another time, whenever it is, if you guys want me to do more of this more frequently, please let me know. I'm more than happy. This is like fun stuff for me. I'm also actually learning the intricacies of Swift. I have a basic overview of it, but I've been meaning to play around with it a little bit more, and this is a perfect opportunity to do that. So if you have any ideas, any questions, anything you'd like me to check out, or if you want me to continue moving forward with this faster, yeah, please just comment away and I'll be more than happy to address it and, actually do it. All right. Till next time, stay swift. Assalamu alaikum.